It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Well, welcome everyone to the Hazleton Area School District Report, our monthly report. And yes, my friends, we're going to address some of your questions. Appreciate you giving me the questions and the comments about the show. We're trying to keep you involved in what's happening in the school district, where we're going. It's a $260 million operation. A lot of money, okay. Today we're going to have two parts. We're going to learn about the new challenges that the school board has, and we're going to bring on some people on special education. Ed Shemansky joins us today, and Ed is the new school board president. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You got a challenge ahead, not that you don't know that.
I understand that, yes I do.
And of course, joining us is our superintendent, Brian Uplinger. Well, Ed, with $260 million and the fact that there's so much going on and challenges, and I want to make a note that of this $260 million, 80% of that is salaries. But you've been on the board for a while, and I have to tell you this. I was the chairman of Luzerne County Community College Board for 10 years, know what it's all about, and the work that, if you're dedicated to work that goes in there. You are surrounded with an excellent board. You have great talent on that board, and you're blessed with that.
Yes, we are. We have from all walks of life, educators, business people. Yeah, so it's been a good combination, I feel, to get things done.
Brian, the transition between Bonomo and the presidents, the challenges are still there. In general, and then I'll have Eddie speak specifically on the programs. The biggest need now is what? Space,
and we talk about that all the time. The number of students that are coming to us are constantly increasing. We just need space, and we've provided that in many different venues, and we're very proud of the accomplishments that we've already had thus far. We're looking to move on into another direction.
So in alleviating some of that, you went to the Laurel Mall. Now, how is the Laurel Mall working for you?
Fantastic. It's doing what we asked it to do. It's providing the space for our staff for our cyber program. It's providing our school store will open very shortly. It's providing a space for students to go if they need extra tutoring, any testing that they may have to take, computers that may need to be fixed for those cyber programs. It really is serving more than the purpose of what we expected.
So, Eddie, as you know, the biggest challenge, okay, as he's talking about space, your biggest challenge as a president now would be what?
Well, to make more space. As you probably know, we've done everything we could with our existing buildings. We got rid of some swimming pools, made them into classrooms. We made our libraries smaller. So our existing buildings, we're out of every square inch there is that we could add classroom space. So now it comes down to we're going to have to build a new school, a new building to accommodate. We're in the process now of thinking of around 1,800 students, because as you know, our population is exploding daily, so we need more classrooms.
What is it at now?
We're roughly 13,500 students.
Okay, and you're jammed
we are.
up. Okay,
yeah, we are.
So with that, and then you see the next couple of years, another couple thousand coming in.
Yeah.
And this is what you're faced with. Okay.
Yes, it is, and it's a lot of money. We're talking a lot of money. It's a big decision that has to be made, and how we're going to spend this. How we're going to do this building.
The problem is, what's the alternate?
There is none.
That's exactly right.
There is none.
So that's where, when you're coming in and we talk about competent people and accountability, you need a school board to give direction to the administration, not to run the administration. Right. So what do you see, Ed, in terms of what you would like in the board that then gives it to the administration and they would follow up with that?
As far as the new building goes?
Yeah.
Well,
that seems to be priority, right?
Right, it is priority. That's got to be first. There's other projects we have in the pipeline, but the priority is figure out where we're going to put this building, the size of this building, try to keep the cost as low as we can. But building costs, as you have exploded over the last 20 years. as I was telling you earlier, we did Project 2000. That started in the late 90s. We refurbished and added on to 11 buildings. That was a $107 million project, and we got a lot of classrooms out of that. But now, with the building cost exploding the way it is, and site costs, no matter where you go, you have a extreme amount of site costs. You know, that's parking lots, et cetera, and, you know, to where to put the building. So right now, the board is contemplating. We've been talking about building a school behind the existing high school. That's a challenging site also, but that we own the land. So we're looking at that, and we're also looking at what this building's going to look like when it's done. And we're also trying to bring in, which I'm sure you will hear about later, we have special ed students all over the county, I guess you could say, that we cannot service right now, and they're basically in private schools that they basically charge whatever they want. And it's costing us a lot of money, and we'd like to bring that program back here into Hazleton.
In terms as you building the building that you're planning right now, that will service how many students?
Right now, we're talking about 1,800 students, plus, I believe, the special...
Around, right, and plus about 70 students that are in special needs programs that are outside of the district.
And so this would help for the expansion, okay?
Correct.
Do you see a leveling off at any point in time, you know?
No, I don't. Not with the number of factories and things that are coming in.
One thing we brought up last time we had the show. We're not getting our fair share, from what I understand, from the state, okay? Okay, so now how do we address that?
Well, they've upped it, I believe,
Right.
and if they could continue to give us what they gave us this year, I think we'll be in pretty good shape. We still have one of the lowest tax bases in the county, the Hazleton Area School District does, or millage. So we're very proud of that. I think the past business offices over the last 20 years have did a great job. We're in, I'm not going to say great financial shape, but we're in good financial shape. The money that we borrowed years ago to do Project 2000, mortgage payment, the mortgage is almost paid.
Yeah, a lot of people who do not have students they're paying school tax, okay? And the point is, as I mentioned, is sometimes you have to understand when you're educating people, it affects your life even though you don't have students going, because you're dealing with people who are working and they need an education. So in essence, we are helping even though we don't have property. I know it doesn't help the pocketbook, but you know where I'm going.
Well, yeah, we're one of the few states, I believe, that still use property tax to pay for education.
Yeah.
There's a lot of states that use a sales tax.
Yeah.
And we would love to see that. I mean, but our state legislators are keeping it at, we have to use property tax to pay the bills.
Well, I wish you the best, and we're here to help you.
Okay, thank you.
Now, coming up next, we have Jim Weed, who is the Assistant Director of Special Education, and Bob Mehalick, who is the Assistant to the Superintendent of Student Services. Here again, I could talk to Ed for another 2 hours and talk about all the things that are involved, but let me just tell you this. Being in the education, started with the vocational school back in 1967, I think it was, or 68. We have grown so much, and we have the best quality of teachers, second to none, administration second to none, and the school board second to none. So we're pretty blessed in this area. We'll be back right after this. Well, welcome back to the Hazleton School District Report. We do it every month, my friend. We may have other reports. We have the Mayor's Report in Hazleton, the Luzerne County Community Report every month, the Visit Luzerne Report, and we also have the Hazleton Area School District Report, as I mentioned, and the Schuylkill Report as well. Joining me now is Bob Mehalick, no stranger to the area. He is the Assistant to the Superintendent and Student Services, and Jeff Weed, who is the Assistant Director of Special Education. You know, Bob, special education, is such a challenge today. Tell us in general, specifically about the department, and we'll talk to Jeff about the actual programming.
Yeah, so our special education department is a large department. It was large when I taught here in the late 90s, and it's even larger now. We have over 2,300 students that have some sort of disability that requires an individual education plan. In addition to that, we have 1,400 early intervention students. That's those students ages 3 to 5 who may have some sort of developmental delay that requires, early intervening services. So all that is encompassed under the umbrella of social student services. In addition to that, the student services oversees our alternative programming, such as our cyber schools, our students. I know in the last segment I heard about our students who are placed out of the district, and we do currently have about 90 students who are placed out of district, just because their needs might be more than what we can appropriately service at this time. Large department, a lot of staff. Our special education staff is as large as most districts' entire staff. But they do an amazing job, and Mr. Weed is really exceptional. His leadership and guidance of the department has been unbelievable, and a real pleasure to work with.
Jeff, in looking at the qualifications, okay, and the needs, because it's a whole different ball game, when you're in special education and you need the teachers who understand. What are the qualifications? What are some of the areas that you're covering in special education?
So, special education is covered under the IDEA. It's from federal to state laws that kind of regulate and set the parameters on how we identify students. So there's a process that we go through to identify a student who potentially needs special education. And then once that's determined, then we can service that student based on the evaluation of the student. An evaluation takes place from one of our school psychologists, thanks to our board of directors, to our superintendents and Mr. Mehalick, for streamlining and actually expanding our abilities to service and evaluate students. We now have 10 school psychologists that are part of the special education team, and they all do a fantastic job, as well as an addition of 3 individuals who help our child study team. So this is all part of the process of identifying a child who's in need.
And how do you identify? They start from when they first come into the system, or is it as they develop and grow into the system?
It could. So as Mr. Mehalick mentioned, a student could come to us from one of our early intervention programs with already an identification of a global delay, where they have, something that needs to be further looked at. In the kindergarten early intervention, those 3-year-olds, they could come in with something that needs a little bit more. Or they could come to us with a diagnosis from a doctor, a medical diagnosis.
What are some of the diagnoses?
So there's 13 areas that special education covers in the state of Pennsylvania, but one of the most pronounced today is autism. So you could be being serviced under the identification of autism. There's emotional support, those students who might have some behavioral or mental health needs. There could be those with vision needs, hearing needs. They call them more low incidence. It doesn't affect a lot of our population, but those services are critical, to our students and them being able to access their education. We also have learning disabilities. So those students who might have difficulty reading or, doing the, math is the 2 areas that you'll see a learning disability effect. Then you have students who are under the classification of other health impairment. And that means there might be some kind of health-related situation that impedes their ability to learn. So a student that has diabetes, or maybe a student with ADD or ADHD, we will classify them under the diagnosis of other health impairments. So in all, there's 13 categories. Again, in the state of Pennsylvania, where a child can be identified as needing special education services.
And Jeff, and when you're looking at the diversity here, okay, how do you specifically then address it? Do you have autism in a certain group and the different groupings, and you approach them? How do you approach all of those different areas?
Yes, so what we did this year, and it's the first year we're doing it, we departmentalized, if you want to call it
Yeah.
that. So we have 3 supervisors within the district that are supervising specific disability categories. As Bob mentioned, we have a supervisor who now oversees all our autistic classrooms within the district. There's 27 autistic classrooms in the districts. Ms. Chrissy DeLash does that. She is in charge of that programming, from the curriculum that those students receive to the schedules in those classrooms, supporting the teachers, supporting the paraprofessionals. That's all overseen by one. This way we could focus on, our classrooms, and each building has, whether you're in McAdoo or whether you're in Drums, it's a set program across the district. There's continuity across those programmings. And then we have a supervisor who oversees our emotional disturbance classrooms, as well as our MDS, which is our multiple disability classrooms, and our life skills classrooms. And then we have one supervisor who oversees all our learning support programming, which is a large population. And they're the ones that Mr. Mehalick mentioned, who could have a specific learning disability within a category of math, writing, reading, something like that.
How do you see the progress, when you're starting? I mean, because everyone's worth something, okay? And are they getting the needs that they could, go on, graduate, and be of service not only to themselves but to society?
So it is tracked using different types of standardized assessments that our special education teachers are trained to deliver to our students. But it is important that we see as educators the constant growth in our students, and we are always looking for the progress.
Jeff, and when you're dealing with the special education, some of these, I would assume some students are on medication. Mm-hmm. Okay, so how does that play with the instruction and the teacher? Do some teachers have to administrate the medical needs that they need, whether it's prescription drugs or whatever?
So servicing a child is what we always say, is a 360 approach, from the home to the school, back to the home, and keeps going around, which also involves all staff from the district, to our nursing staff, which plays a role in a student with special needs. Sure. When you talked about medication needs to be given from a medical individual, certified individual.
Do you have that?
Yes, we have nurses in all our buildings that we partner with, in the sense of they are part of the IEP team. That team, each child is given an IEP team. It takes a village to raise one, it takes one to educate as well. So that team is created there to put the supports and be the foundation for that child, whether it's medical needs, academic needs, social needs, community-based
so that's being addressed.
Needs. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So how do you now they're segregated to a degree because of learning it. How do you then bring them into the mix when there's the entire their classes? How do you do that?
So at periodic times of the day, there needs to be opportunities for our students with disabilities to interact with our non-disabled students, and we are so proud. Last year we were identified as a champion school. That was a national recognition given to the Hazleton Area School District based upon what we were doing was unifying our students in sports, particularly bocce and track and field, and it gave us an opportunity to bring our students together. So you need to look at
because I would think I would think that's part of your education.
Absolutely.
And the development of the students when they're able to interact with it. Would you agree, Jeff?
Sure, and that's part of, we're an inclusive school meeting. They are included. So even if a child is receiving services, a student is receiving services, they're included in the general education curriculum in classrooms, and then they're supported within those classrooms. Now there are occasions where a student is in need of more intensive services based on their needs, and those students are also included as well, and we look to include them in multiple different aspects, from clubs and that we're talking about now and things like that.
So Bob, being around as long as you've been around, okay, when you see some of the progress when they first come and then they graduate, it just does your heart, it just makes you feel good.
It really does.
Yeah, because you see how they developed, and and God bless those teachers. I mean, you have to have patience, you have to have understanding, you have to have compassion. Am I correct in saying that, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have the very best teachers, and I think that's why our numbers in special education are on the rise, because parents know that the services we provide and the education that their child is receiving is top-notch here at Hazleton area.
You've seen a lot, haven't you, Bob?
Seen a lot, and I will tell you that this district, we have some phenomenal paraeducators, and those are the staff that help our teachers. So the district has a good group of paraeducators. The other thing that we're very proud of, Sam, this year, as you know, we have a very high Hispanic population. Yeah. Well, years past, those students that had disabilities but didn't speak, English or very limited English, it was difficult for us to identify what their needs were.
Yes.
The district has now hired 3 bilingual clinicians. They're working side by side with those 10 school psychologists that Mr. Weed mentioned earlier. And so now we're able to give the assessments in their native language to make sure that we're properly identifying the needs that they have. And that's been a very, very critical improvement to this district.
I would say so. And Jeff, when you're looking at individuals, each one has a personality. Particularly in special education. They have their own personality, you have your own learning curves, I would think, and that's where the challenge comes in. Am I correct in saying that?
Sure, and that's why they have their plan, and each student has an individual education plan, which is the IEP. And they all have
What's IEP, just so people...
The IEP is the plan set forth for that child. It sets forth goals.
So each child has
child has an individualized education plan, which is called the IEP. And then in that plan, you have a summary of the student's performance, where are their baselines, where are their levels at, what is their reading, writing abilities, their math skills. It encompasses the child as a whole, so you get a picture of who they are. That way we can meet the needs of that individual.
And Bob, you're working with parents or guardians at the same time and giving them the progress of what's happening with their students. And of course they could see it. How much of an influence and participation is it that important that you have the guardian and parents to participate?
It's the number one important ingredient to the relationship between how the student does in school and how he carries or she carries those, those talents and skills over to the community. Without question, we'll see students do far better when their families, their loved ones are involved in the process than those that, sadly, don't have that same supports.
How about communicating with the teacher and the parent and saying, well, my child, if she does this, it's because of this, and your child better. No, if you do this, you get that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's imperative. Family involvement's imperative. Again, that wraparound services, anything you do provide for your child, if that's followed through and cared through with a parent and a family, involvement, you're going to see better success than when there's no engagement there. But that's part of the whole team. The team includes, from teachers to parent to the nursing or anybody else that needs to, service that child.
Well, you got an award-winning special education department, Bob, and it's a beautiful thing that you have, because when you see these individual children, they are worth something like everybody else, and they become a part of their group and their class, and I think that's wonderful. Jeff, keep up the good work. So, my friends, you're watching the Hazleton Area School District Report. My email, sam@ssptv.com. You can watch the show 24/7. If you don't have cable, our YouTube channel, just Hazleton Area School District Report, Sam Lesante, and you'll learn a lot what's going on in our school district. So yes, we are trying to address some of those questions you have. I'll bring some of those up to Brian and we'll discuss. I know the Career Center is important, as we used to know it as vocational education. We'll talk about that and some other things, particularly the development of the school project, which is the main thing that they're looking for in 2025. We'll see you next time.